Mesdames et messieurs,
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to welcome you for this conference, Political Institutions in Search of Trust, for these 2 days with Julien, Matthias and Frédéric. We are organizing this event with a lot of excitement for many months already. I must say that the political news show that this is an important theme. So as an introduction, we would like to come back to the main issues of the subject and to set the broad background, so it will be incomplete. So we have to notice one thing. Many authors have given trust a key role in the functioning of political systems. Thus, it is commonplace to consider trust as one of the invisible institutions on which social systems, political systems are based, and as well democracy. You know that trust in political institutions is a key concern of citizens, the media, and the political circles. There are many publications talking about the lack of trust in political institutions. To show you recent illustrations of that, the German newspaper just before regional elections in Germany said, "Why is Germany in a deep trust crisis?" So next to scientific literature and conferences, we decided that we had to organize a conference on this topic to try to find some answers to questions that don't find clear answers in literature. So this trust crisis, does it really exist? And after all, what are we talking about when we talk about trust? And what about the trust in political institutions? And finally, why do legal advisors should focus on this? So there are different questions. First question, is there a political crisis, a trust crisis in this? So answering this is not easy. So we carried out a comparative statistical analysis that demonstrates that the quantitative information we have do not allow us to assert in absolute terms that there is a crisis or a decrease of trust in political institutions. The trust levels, which are not very high, as you know, don't seem to be evolving much over the last decades. But the data we have studied have some limitations. Few data before the 1980s, some elements do not converge, so we should not draw hasty conclusions. And there are many good reasons to think that there's a big difference between the trust declared or stated by the respondents and the one that we can see in their actions. So we have to take seriously the fact that trust is considered as a social issue by citizens in political circles. In the political side, as we will see on this first day, the decision makers are well aware of these challenges and seem to be looking for a new trust by mobilizing the law to find the distrust they are facing. Hence, the many rules to put some morale in political life. Over the past 30 years, in order to restore trust, they've done this with more or less success. On the public side, some research show that the loss of trust in citizens is reflected in abstention, suspicion towards politicians, and rejection of mediation from political parties, trade unions, and the increase of populism. And we could mention also a more acute request, even from the youngest people, to have a charismatic single leader. So as you can see, there's an emergency to deal with the issue of trust in political institutions. Second question, what about trust? What is it? So a researcher who is trying to find a definition of trust will face the multidimensional and equivocal nature of this definition, whether it is in social, human, political, or economic sciences. Research on trust have highlighted very different concepts or even competing concepts of this notion. Some authors, such as Harding, Coleman, Gambetta, and Luhmann, perceive this as a rational and cognitive issue. others see that as a belief in others or an act of faith or linked to morale, as Fukuyama and Bayer. So, without judging on this controversy, we will consider generally that trust could be apprehended in the following way. It is a cognitive state, an emotional state, a mix of rational feelings that is engaged in a relationship with others, trustees, whether it's a person or institutions. And this person in which the trust is placed, hope that the commitment will be respected. Of course, the person in whom you place your trust has some degree of freedom to achieve the acts trusted. And so we can see three things here. First, trust is a relational concept. A, trust. B, to adopt a certain behavior in the future. Secondly, trust is about some expectations of predetermined behaviors. It's not limited. It's assumption that the trustee will adopt a certain behavior in the future. And thirdly, there is some vulnerability in the trust in the one trusting, because it creates a situation of uncertainty and a potentially negative result. So the person trusting may be disappointed. So trust is also highlighted by a different, very large diversity of trust. There's the interpersonal trust between individuals, impersonal trust, also called systemic trust, as it says, is the trust into a system, whether it's legal, bank, economic system. There's also trust between institutions, and we'll look at this on our second day. For example, the trust between the parliament and the government. I would like to add also that in the English language, there's two types of trust. There's trust and confidence. In French, we don't make that distinction. So if we look at what Niklas Luhmann says, a German sociologist, he defines trust as a decided trust. I decide to take a risk and to trust someone. But confidence is the guaranteed trust. I can guarantee that I will not be disappointed. I know that if I go outside, cars will not run me over. And so when it comes to constitutional law, there is this issue, but the words trust and confidence are used in constitutional law. Third question for this introduction: what is political trust? So we have to trust daily without even being aware of it. Trust is necessary. If not, you cannot leave your bed this morning and come to this conference because you're afraid you're going to have a car accident or something, or because you might think that our conference would not be worthy of coming. So consciously or unconsciously motivated by your confidence in our ability to organize a great event, you are here. Trusting an individual, a doctor, a babysitter, or some conference organizers, that is easy to understand. But how can we transpose this general consideration to political trust? We consider, as some other authors, that there can be a trust relationship between individuals, political institutions, and their agents. Based on these facts, many researches have been done on political institutions on political trust. We have to mention that the trust in political institution is not very different from the interpersonal trust, but at the difference of the trust into individuals, the trust in political institutions is related to the roles. So it means that citizens can trust the governing leaders, not because of their personality, but because of the role in our democracy that they have and the political circles they belong to. So this generates some expectations from the citizens towards our governing bodies that have to avoid doing stupid things. So the trust into these roles is interconnected, because the interpersonal trust can compensate the deficit of trust in those roles or positions. For example, I can vote for Donald Trump, Emmanuel Macron, or Joe Biden because I have an interpersonal trust, even though I don't trust the American or French political institutions. And we can also notice that a deficit of trust in institutions can lead to a lack of trust from individuals. There can be a rejection of people just because they are connected to power and because they are around institutions we do no longer support. So political trust is a hybrid trust. On the one hand, it's a general trust in the ability of the political institution performance, and on the other hand, it's a belief in the abilities of performance of those who have political functions. Now, I give the floor to Céline to conclude this introduction. Fourth question: why is this political trust worthy of researching? The notion of trust is especially the political trust has been widely worked on by human and political sciences, and it's been forgotten by legal advisors, or legal experts. And this is why we thought that there was an urgency for the legal experts to deal with the notion of trust, and not in any way, but based on a deep understanding rooted in social and political sciences of the complexity of this invisible institution, which is the basis of all social systems, political systems, the legal system as well, and it is a practical necessity. And we'll come back to this. If trust is widely undefined in the political way, it's more and more mobilized in the public law documents, but especially in the speeches on public law. We can mention the French law of 2017 for the trust in political life that sets out some ineligibility laws, incompatibility laws that frames also the funding of political action. And in the UK, and we'll come back to this, there are some debates on the ministerial goal and the attempt to have laws about these behaviors. So there's a need to restore trust in politicians through the adoption of standards. So while we are saying that many events are at the source of the lack of trust, we can see that public law has been mobilized almost in rituals systematically to rebuild trust by adopting new standards without carrying a deep analysis on the issue of whether trust can be decided through procedures and without doing a deep analysis on the effect of those standards that are supposed to rebuild this trust. Generally speaking, a deep understanding of trust seems decisive to better understand the democracy demands and a democratic system, especially in these times of change when trust is more than ever an invisible institution, especially in speeches that is given a key role, especially to face the transitions that we are facing. So it is important, but what is surprising is that the nature and the basis of political trust, the way it's rooted in human rationale, its relationship to the notion of power, authority, and legitimacy remain widely undefined, especially if we consider them through public law, as if trust was flying above or underneath institutions without knowing exactly what role they play in democracy. It is precisely for this reason that we have decided to organize this conference. The topic of the trust in political institutions, which has brought us together today, has been a research project that we carried out together with Matthias as Frédéric and Julien for 3 years now in the framework of a project that has been funded by the University Foundation, that we would like to thank, by studying political trust and the way it's apprehended by public authorities. We highlighted, as we said, that literature on political trust had many articles in the literature, but very poor in public law, and that the English-speaking and French-speaking authors focusing on these issues were not really having a dialogue, we're not connected. So this is why we have selected top speakers, key speakers for these topics, and we would like to thank all the speakers and chairmen of the panels of different fields, and Émilie Vanout and Pierre-Henri Tavolot, who will do the conclusions of the first and second day by accepting to take part in this event. Even though they have a very busy agenda, we can benefit from your remarkable knowledge to feed our debate on this topic. And we do hope that you will also go back with more knowledge. We would like to thank all the participants. Your presence was key to the success of this event, and we're happy to see that many of you has responded to our invitation. Thank you for your trust. So we were impatient to meet you, but also to have you meet the others. So the dialogue between the speakers themselves and between the speakers and the audience is an important part of this conference, and it's very important to us. So we would like to encourage you to take the floor during the discussion times in this conference. And I would like to thank all the administration who has helped us organize this conference. Thank you very much to all. So this first part is in 2 panels. I won't be very long because you have the program in your leaflet. The first panel is trust and interdisciplinary perspectives. It will keep us busy until lunch, chaired by Edouard Delruel. Thank you very much for being with us. And the objective is to offer an analysis of political trust and an interdisciplinary perspective first, and to end up with the conceptualization of trust in the constitutional debate. Then we'll resume at 2 o'clock on political ethics and trust, shared by Sophia van den Bosch. She is a researcher at Max Planck in Heidelberg, and who will tell us about the role model of politicians, which is more and more the attention of political makers. And Émilie Vanout will do the conclusions of that first day around 5 p.m. And then we'll analyze the rest of the conference tomorrow. So we hope that there will be exciting exchanges in this conference, and we wish you an excellent conference. Thank you.